Hey everybody, Cam with Inky Knuckles here, coming at you on a rare Thursday night. We've been a little sporadic with the shows, but we're trying to do more and more. Plenty of collector profiles and artist shows, but yeah, we're really happy tonight to have a very special guest, our good friend, crazy collector, wild man, Mikail. How you doing, sir?
I am doing well. How are you?
Good, good. It's snowing here, so it's about standard for November. How about
That's
out your way?
well, we recently moved from Boston to San Diego, so the weather has improved.
That
And
doesn't suck.
I did leave all my snow gear behind
For good.
very happily.
Well, whenever you decide to come to Western Canada for a visit and we go snowboarding or whatever we do, I'll hook you up with a couple pairs of gloves and boots and
That sounds pretty good, actually.
once we get through this COVID nonsense. But yeah, so yeah, thanks for coming on. You and I go back and forth quite a bit. Your collection is pretty crazy. I was doing some searching through your calf page earlier too, and a bunch of prominent pieces and commissions from the last year that I don't even think I knew were yours. I'd seen them posted other places, but yeah. How has your collecting year been?
It's been very commission heavy. That's what the COVID year seems to have been. Um, and I consider myself to be a pretty new collector. I've only been collecting for about 5 years really, and really only about 3 years seriously. But I'm a little bit OCD, so when I get into something, I really get into something. And I was buying a lot, and every year that you delay getting into this hobby is a disaster for the newcomer to this hobby.
Yeah.
Like I can't believe it that just in the time that I've been around, I've seen such a massive spike in prices and seemingly a sustainable spike in prices. The modern art, I'm actually now staying away from because I feel it's extremely expensive.
Yeah.
And while I collect for myself and for the art that I love, I mean, you can't just be throwing away thousands of dollars. Not that it's throwing it away. I mean, I'm happy to support the artists, but it's a weird market right now.
Well, and it's funny that you say that because I've been collecting about 10 years. So, not much longer than you have been collecting art. And I can honestly remember two instances I speak of because these guys are so prominent right now. I got a Daniel Warren Johnson commission for $30 once, 9x12, fully realized Punisher commission. And I recall going to Seattle in Jeff Shaw's early days, not early days, but when I think Felix started repping him, and he had that book out, that early book. I can't remember what it was called. I think it was kind of a superhero parody, The Paybacks or something. I can't remember what it was. But I went to Emerald City and no one was on his list. I picked up a commission from him that I'd commissioned before, but no one was on his list. And you look at those guys now and what their market looks like now, it's crazy to think. And I felt like you did, where every year you delay getting into the hobby, it's so much worse. Because when I got in, people were talking about prices in 2008, 2005, and it's just been this upward tick. But that's a very interesting.
Yeah, the barrier to entry, depending on what your goal is and what what you're really looking for, is very high. I mean, it's absurd to be in a hobby where you are regularly trading, 4-figure, 5-figure pieces, or buying them or selling them. It's a very heady experience,
Yeah.
but you have to be careful. And I just hope that the people getting in can see that there are still ways to get into this hobby without having to spend a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it still definitely exists. I know there's a lot of artists out there, a lot of artists on Instagram and Twitter. Some days I come across 18 artists whose work I discover, and they're new and they're taking commissions and they're doing things. So it's definitely out there for newbies, and it is. It's like a drug when you first get into it. It's amazing and it's super fulfilling, and just being able to commission these people, these artists for something is just such a unique thing.
When it's like you're bending someone to your will, that you have no right to be dictating anything to this artist. Like I'm not artistically inclined at all. Like I can't draw anything, I can't play any instruments, and then I see these other people who are like, oh, he's great, Daniel Warren Johnson, great artist, fantastic musician, great writer, and it just blows me away that he would take the time out to create something for me.
Yeah.
And to put so much thought and energy and effort into it. Those are the artists that really just shine when you get their work, I think.
Yeah, and I was thinking about Daniel the other day too, just how talented of a musician he is. I think of Troy Nixie and his how he makes movies, and he's a film director and a storyteller and all these things. And I'm trying to think of someone else recently. Oh, I look at a guy like Brian Level, who does amazing art and is a tattoo artist as well. And it's just this multi-talented. And I'm like you, I can't draw for shit. Like, it's embarrassing. Even when I have to, anytime I have to use a pen, I'm embarrassed by it. But to have all these guys, multi-talented people, it's pretty cool. So what was your first piece?
My first piece was so I'll give you the quick origin story, because that leads into my first piece in a way. So I read, my parents moved us from California to overseas to Pakistan in '86 when I was 9 years old. And my grandmother's house where we were living, in the storage room, I found a briefcase full of Silver and Golden Age comics. And so that was my immediate link back to the States. I didn't take the move very well. I was like, I don't want to do this. I want to stay here. So I just devoured those things. There were comics in there that I just probably read 100 times. And from there, I went to the library and just, picked up whatever I could. And so that's where the censorship thing that we were talking about earlier comes in, that in Pakistan, the censors always check to see what was coming in. So you could get the wholesome titles like Archie or Batman or Superman, but you weren't getting Hellboy or Watchmen or things like that.
Yeah.
And so I read, I read what I could growing up, from the age of 9 to 17 probably. And that was kind of like the Jim Lee era, and then I came back to the States for college, and I dropped away from comics around 2000, mid '90s to 2000. You were more interested in other things than comic books, so I didn't really keep up with it, even though I came back to a place where I had more access. And then I was off the grid probably until 2010. And then and I'm sorry, Donny Cates, but I discovered torrents and just started, downloading and reading comics. I mean, just and the benefit of that was that I had 10 years of catch up on the good titles, on titles that have depth and substance. So, I bombed through like Fables and The Boys. I remember, it was all finished when I started reading it. And so I started, I was reading comics, and we moved back to the States in 2013 and to Boston, and I went to Newbury Comics, and that just blew my mind to have access to a comic book store like that. But the fare at the time, I don't think I didn't really relate to it. Like I bought all the X-Men titles and I just got confused, and I was like, what's blue, what's red, what's gold? It's
Yeah.
it's too much. New 52 didn't do anything for me. There was some great stuff as well, like the Sandman Overture came out at that time, and
Yeah.
that really reignited my love of a lot of game and stuff. And then I was also reading a webcomic online, which is JL8 by Yale Stewart, which takes the Justice League and re-envisions them as second and third graders.
Oh.
Um, he's a really great artist with a unique style and a really nice sense of humor. And so I was reading them online, and then he mentioned in his on his blog where he posted his comics that he was putting pieces up on eBay. And so he put up this Zatanna piece that was really cool, and it was my first eBay foray ever. And I put in a bid and didn't understand anything, and obviously didn't win it. And then a couple months later, he put up this other piece, this Batman, Bruce, like Batman leaping. It's like very Dark Knight-ish with lightning in the background, but
Yeah.
he's jumping off a swing basically. It's really cool. And so that was my first eBay win, and first piece of original art. And he sent it to me, and he sent like a color print of it as well. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. But then that was probably in like June or July of 2015. And then in August, I went to my first con ever, which was Boston Comic Con.
Yeah.
And that was the real hook,
Yeah.
because I went to Artist Alley and I got a commission from Tim Sale, and I
Oh,
got
wow.
a commission from I forget, there was another one, but the Tim Sale was really the big one because it was super expensive. It was $600. And I was lucky to even have that money. Like that was literally running to the ATM and
Yeah.
pulling it out. But then to make that decision to pay this much money to a guy to make a picture for you, it was daunting. But it was it
Well,
was I, that was the life changer. Like I hung out at the table and just eyeballed him, like making this amazing piece of work, all with all brush and ink. And then after that, and then luckily Albert had a stall there, and I will give Albert credit because he had a stall with some really good vintage, like my vintage displayed, the
yeah.
80s. And I didn't buy anything, but then I ended up going to his website and ordering a couple things that I had seen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was basically the beginning.
Well, and that's a pretty, so Tim Sale, that was your second piece next to after the Yale
Yep.
one. Yeah.
Yep.
It's funny. That was my first like big name piece as well. Mine was a fast pass. Yours would have been more of a commission, I'm presuming, six hundred
Yeah, and
dollars.
they said he's going to take 30 to 40 minutes. Like that's how he was with the Essential, and so they
Yeah.
basically tried to do these slots, but obviously it doesn't really work that much. And I think he was taking more like an hour with each piece.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it came out like just phenomenal, and
What
it's one of
character was
those.
it?
It was the Hulk, and I asked him to put my daughter into it, so it's the Hulk giving my daughter a flower.
Ah, I believe. Do you have that piece handy right now? I can pull it up.
Yeah. No, hold on a sec.
Oh yeah.
And so the first thing that he did was he took a brush and just put this black line right across this line. And then the second thing he did was make this shape. And you're looking at the page and you're like, what is he going to do with that? And and the way he put it together just blew my mind. I mean, and then
Oh,
and then
that's
that's what came
beautiful.
out.
Um, I do remember that piece because I remember I've always really liked when he does those more human moments, especially with the Hulk. Um, oh, it's right here. I will share this. Let's have your calf up. Um,
And yeah, and Grey Hulk is definitely one of my favorites. I think I've discovered that I'm a secret Hulk person, like Jay Giant and some of the other guys out there. I love the Hulk when he's portrayed in different ways.
yeah, the Gamma Bros, Dave, TC, Octavio. Who else? There's a whole slew of them. The Hulkamaniacs. Start calling
I
them
think that
that.
he's a character with a lot of depth, and Immortal Hulk has just been insane. Like one of the better reads, definitely, that I've had over the last couple of months.
Well, and I think with Immortal Hulk and even like Tim's Hulk, it's so hard to find like a really iconic Hulk story. Hulk's in a bunch of iconic stories, but for a solo one, if maybe Future Imperfect or something like that. But I just wanted to touch on Tim Sale for a second because oh, there's Rod. Yeah, exactly. Um, because even if, and I'm a big Tim Sale fan too. Even if you're not a big Tim Sale fan, and you're at a convention, you need to check out his table. What do you got there?
This is the cover for Immortal Hulk 8.
Is that Alex Ross?
Yeah, so talk about Frankenstein, right? I mean,
Oh my God. When did you get that? Today?
I
Wow.
mean the Hulk in jars, still alive. It's amazing.
That, that's incredible. That
But
is,
yeah, Tim Sale is, I was a big fan, like The Long Halloween, um, some of these books that I'd read. And that's the other thing, that I was such a lazy reader as a child. I read the books. I didn't pay attention to the writer or the artist. I was just absorbing the art and the story. Um, and then I realized in retrospect, though so somebody asked once, what was the first artist who made you really notice and take note of the artist on a book? And for me, it definitely was McFarlane. Like his cape work on Batman, and then obviously the ASM run.
yeah, that's,
But yeah,
that's, um, that's a good point. I never really thought about the first artist that made me take notice. That's a really good question. But yeah, so
but you were saying Mateo.
oh yeah, just about that whole, just he's throwing lines and he's throwing splashes on the page and then it turns into something. Like I feel like what he does is the true essence of kind of what got us hooked on art and cons. Because like even now, I haven't bought something from Tim in quite some time, but I always go to that table just to see that. It's just incredible what he's capable of doing. And yeah, I think, well, a lot of our YouTube channels, we end up going off on tangents, and Tim's usually one of them. But Rod says his was Wrightson, which is definitely fair.
I recently got to see one of the Wrightson plates in person, and I think I would have fainted if I could have. I mean, Wrightson is, when you see it in person, it just blows you away. And I despair of ever having one, but it's amazing to see.
Which one was it?
This was a private collector who I had the privilege of meeting, and they brought some art over to share. So
Oh, okay. It wasn't the like what specific piece was it? Or is it kind of,
it
I mean,
was
obviously don't.
the one of the plates from one of the horror kind of it was just a scene, like it wasn't a piece I was familiar with at all,
Oh, okay.
but it was just seeing the way he put the lines in and broken them and building up texture and layer. It That's the kind of thing that I look for now if I'm going to buy something modern.
Yeah. The what I often say, and I'll get you to answer this here in a question, answer this question here in a second too. But I feel like Bernie, one of those Frankenstein plates, that's the lottery money piece that I would get. You know, if you ever come into an exorbitant amount of money where you can get any piece you want, I personally believe that Bernie is the top of the mountain for that stuff. Curious, who would be the artist and what would it be for you?
I It's hard to think about. I'd love an ASM McFarlane cover. That seems to start getting, very distant. Um, um, my Action 583, the cover that David Mandel has, that's a piece that because that was one of the comics that was in the briefcase that I found in my grandmother's house when we moved, and
Nice.
I read it into shreds, literally. Like and it was Alan Moore, Kurt Swan, like just an amazing story, and that's with me. The story is a big part of it. Like the
Yeah.
story has to bring me into it. Like any Grail that you talk about, or any um, and I can see why with Wrightson there's an exception, and the same thing with Frazetta. Like I didn't have any appreciation for Frazetta. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know anything about it. And then when Heritage put out the Egyptian Queen catalog,
Uh,
it's such an amazing piece. You look at it and you realize you're looking at something just spectacular, just something life-changing, something
yeah.
very special. So, there's probably pieces like that, but not for a small fry like us.
Yeah, one can only dream. But I, like we talked about earlier, I think there truly is something for everyone. And I noticed because you get a lot of commissions, modern stuff. You get stuff from new artists and more established artists. But what's really driving you these days? Is it a combination of both nostalgia and that eye test qualities driving it, or is it more nostalgia or
No, it's I the thing is I trust my eye. Um, After 4 or 5 years, I do trust my eye. Whatever it is I'm seeing that I feel I like seems to have, I've, knock on wood, done really well. I've made smart buys. I've overpaid for a couple pieces as well, but sometimes you
yeah,
do because you need it.
yeah,
I just today bought a piece, paying a little bit over market, but it completed a sequence. It's a piece that I've been looking for a long time. But mostly it's artists that I like, and if I can, deal with them directly, or as directly as possible, so that they're getting the full benefit of it, versus me buying like a secondhand commission or something that's
yeah.
up on auction. So I've had a phenomenal run of success, and I just got two pieces in today that I wanted to kind of talk about. Um, so Colleen Doran, um, did snow glass apples this year, which did really well.
Yeah.
And I reached out to her and said, I would love to commission the Endless in the style of snow glass apple. And
Oh,
so
nice.
this is the first piece that we got. And if you look at the detail in the embroidery of the robe of Desire, it's a
Oh,
huge
wow.
it's just an orgy.
That is awesome.
And then today, so this is the first piece she sent. And today I got a package with the next two in this series. So this is Dream.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, when I see impeccable work like this, when I see blacks that are deep, when I see line work and a pose that has obviously been considered, and that's what just blows me away. That's what I think has the power to stand the test of time. And this despair that she came up with, I mean, how perfect is that for 2020?
Yeah, yeah, that is summing it up. That is awesome. So you commissioned all of these from her?
Yeah, I did it through her Patreon.
Oh, nice.
So I said, I'm just gonna stay at this level, and let's work through each one. And so to come up with the composition, to come up with the concept for this piece, and then to execute it that's what I'm looking for. But at the same time, I'm happy to work with new artists. I met this gentleman in line at New York Comic Con last year. We were in line to meet Lee Weeks, who is like the nicest person you can ever meet, but will take about an hour with each person in line. So you have to be extremely patient.
Yeah.
And he was behind me, and we got to talking because we were waiting a long time. And he's like, "Oh, I'm an artist at School of Arts in Brooklyn." And then I met him again in Brooklyn at another show. And I was like, let's do a piece. And what do you want to do? And so I commissioned like a Batman and Robin from him. And that was very fulfilling as well. And that was a situation in which he sent me a draft. And I'll never do this. I don't like to see. Yeah, Ben was an example of a piece I overpaid for, and I told him, I'm like, I'm overpaying for this, but don't tell anyone.
Oh, hey,
But it was a fantastic piece. And Reba has a fantastic collection as well. So
yes, she
and
does. And
she's
some,
that's the other aspect of the hobby that I really like, is that Reba is a person who has such a unique take and such a wide exposure to different media, that you listen to people saying, hey, this is good, and then you go and check it out. So I've definitely been kind of trying to get myself away from the big two, which is my bread and butter for the most
yeah,
part. And the best stories being written nowadays, like when I go to the store, the pull list, what I'm excited for, is a lot of independent stuff now. Department of Truth has been amazing, and The Clock by Colleen Doran I've been reading. So but then at the same time, like I really enjoyed the Hoxpox, House of X, Powers of X reboot of the X-Men, just because what a swing to try and resolve this cluster of retcons. And Jonathan Hickman came up with this fantastic concept, and so I loved it.
yeah. And it's hard to do. It's really kind of boil something back down to its core and rebuild it up the way he did. And I'm with you. I haven't. I was just telling my pal Zach at the comic shop today, who's also a really great artist, that yeah, we hadn't really picked up much big two stuff. I picked up Riley Rossmo's Robin King because Riley's a pal and I always love seeing his stuff.
I've got
But
something of Riley's lined up that I think he's just phenomenal.
oh yeah, have you ever got to spend any time with him? Have you ever met Riley?
No, never.
He's also the nicest, most chill human on the planet. It is crazy. He's such a good dude.
And I hear
And
he has an encyclopedic knowledge of like the artists who are working nowadays and what they're doing and the styles and stuff. So
well, it's crazy. If I go to the comic shop, the one I go to, I'm either going to run into Ryan Sherwood, our good pal, Troy, Nixie, or Riley. And I love running into Riley, but I hate it too because he's just pulling books off the shelf.
So this is a The Doomed and the Damned, a story that he did for Halloween this year
Oh,
with
nice.
Green Lantern and Etrigan the Demon, which are like, I mean, Etrigan is again just one of those characters that I love. So much possibility with that, and Riley's work is, and I wrote this on one of the boards as well. The best thing about Riley is looking at the back too. Sometimes and seeing what the prelims are like, and all the work that he puts in a style that's so uniquely his. And that's what comics should be.
Yep.
Don't pigeonhole yourself into doing something just because that's how it's supposed to be done.
Yep.
And it's hard. I see how you can't all be Riley Rossmo or Daniel Warren Johnson and do your thing and just get away with it,
Yep.
But they've proven that there's a method to their madness and it works.
Well, and I think the big two really they take steps forward when they bring in these auteurs kind of in guys like Daniel and Riley and let them do their thing because it's sometimes we talk on this show, we're not meaning to shit on the big two. It's just some of the stuff it tends to feel so commercialized at times that it's such a pleasant surprise to see Daniel and Wonder Woman and them giving him free reign to do that, or the same with Riley. It's phenomenal, and like you said, it goes to show they can bring these crazy sensibilities to these prominent books.
Yeah, and it's great to see them getting recognized for it too. It's not like the audience is swerving away from them. They're embracing it and talking about it competently, appreciating the art.
Yeah, no, it's very well said. What's next? What do you want to show off next?
So I know that we were talking about Ramadan.
Oh, nice.
This was a page I was super happy to pick up. Something I didn't think that I would be able to get, continuing with the endless theme. And that last panel is just...
That's amazing. Where did you get that from? A dealer or?
No, it was a trade brokered by a very big Sandman fan. And the page actually came from Japan.
Oh, cool.
A collector there. And that's the other thing that I've kind of found myself thinking about these days is, where is the art coming from? Like I buy from Albert and I buy from Felix, but not from too many of the other big houses.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was really in the throes of passion with this hobby, and I saw every single piece that was posted on CAF every day. Whether it was like 300 Zagor pieces or what have you, or the softcore porn that shows up often enough. But I would look at everything, and see and people post on CAF fantastic pieces just randomly.
Yeah.
And so another book that I really liked growing up was Wolverine: The Jungle Adventure, which is and it just goes to show how quality shines through, because a punk kid in Pakistan still read a story and just saw all this amazing storytelling and art in it.
Yeah.
And Mike Mignola, like his art is, it's strange, you know, it's not what you expect it to be. And
Yeah.
um, then Walt Simonson writing this story about Wolverine and the Savage Land. And so I went on a bend and was like, let me see what I can find. And I dug up like 5 pages from this book that was one of my favorites. Um, that then when I met Mike Mignola at Boston Comic Con, I was talking to him and I was like, oh, what's the deal with this story? And he was like, I'll tell you a story about the story. I was walking down the halls of Marvel, and the editor approached me and said, hey, what about doing this Wolverine annual? And Mike said, well, I didn't really want to draw Wolverine or do it, but I wanted the money. So I told the editor, all right, here's what, you get Walt to write it and let us do whatever you want and I'll do it, thinking that it wouldn't happen. And then the next day he gets a call from Walt saying, apparently we're doing a Wolverine story together. And what came out of it is just one of these great little, and I also like Mignola and a lot of the elsewhere work that he did. And then we started talking about feet, and I was like, oh, I love that page about Wolverine escaping from the chair using his feet with a lighter. And he was like, yeah, I love that page too, because feet are hard to draw. And so anytime anyone says, oh, you didn't draw the feet, I just point them to that page of Wolverine using a lighter with his feet. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm out. So in terms of the nostalgic stuff, I just look for pieces that really stand out in my memory. And some of them are like, what you would consider like a high value item. And some of them are not so much. The Starman #1 cover from Tom Lyle, that was a series that came to my bookstore. So I was able to get every issue, and I really read it and I liked it. And I saw a lot of Peter Parker and Will Payton. And then when the #1 cover came up, like that was a piece that was just perfect for me. And it was, not so expensive, and it just makes me happy. It's a piece I love having.
Yeah. Well, and that is nice, because I mean, some of us, we grew up with, like you said, the high dollar items, the Jim Lee X-Men, the McFarlane Spider-Man, and the cost to attain some of that stuff is mind boggling.
Yeah.
And it's funny you bring that up, because I've just been doing, for me, before I got into Marvel Comics and X-Men, the only comics that showed up in my small town, 1,200 people in Southeast Saskatchewan, were Archie comics. But then Archie got Ninja Turtles comics. So before X-Men, before any of that, it was the Ninja Turtles and the Mighty Mutanimals were my grail items. And I haven't looked for a lot of those art-wise, but they can be had. They're not high dollar, high demand items, but they were incredibly important to me as a kid. And it's always nice to have those things. And one thing I just wanted to say about the Jungle Adventure is Gerardo Zaff, he may or may not have a page from that his father traded with Mike. So that is very cool. It took him a long time for him to trust me enough to show me that, because I think sometimes he doesn't show us stuff just because he thinks we're a bunch of vultures and we're going to try and buy all this art. But yeah, he pulled out a Jungle Adventure page that his father had traded with Mike, which is pretty cool.
Zaff's like one of those super interesting artists. The piece that I have coming in from him. I mean, I'm so excited to see that. Like, I'm a huge Lobo fan as well, so that that was just perfect. And the Hawkman covers, oh my God, like, just, you don't have to read the book, you don't have to know the character, but when the image conveys so much, like I'll take that as okay, I can look at this as something to invest in, or something that I should have in my collection, because looking at it, the artistry is just amazing.
Well, I don't think any piece he's done outside of the one Hawkman cover got anywhere near as much notoriety as the Lobo did. So much, in fact, and I don't know if you know this or not, but DC commissioned him to do another painted cover pretty much after seeing that piece. So there is a painted Gerardo cover coming out for DC Comics soon.
I may have heard whispers about it.
Yeah.
Excited to see that.
Yeah, it looks really good. But yeah, he's a super interesting guy, and he's super apt at everything he does. So yeah,
And then the other thing, so then moving on, the other thing I found I really liked is sequences. Because when you start to look at the, the A, B, C, the A quality pages, the B quality pages, the talking head pages, it really makes sense to just have a sequence to put all of that together. And I like having, I bought my first complete story somewhat famously ended up being probably the best purchase I'll ever make, with Silver Surfer Black #3. And getting a complete issue of arts in together is pretty mind-blowing. And I've subsequently put together a couple books. I bought another couple books complete. Actually, the Riley Rossmo pages I was showing, I have the whole story. It's an 8-page story from The Doomed and the Damned. And in terms of an older artist that I like, or more established, is Steve Rude, because World's Finest was probably, again, one of my favorite books, especially the first two issues of that were just so well crafted to explore the very identity of who is Batman, who is Superman, and then the artwork and the way they tied Joker and Luthor into that. So one of the pieces on my calf in my featured gallery is the Death of Alfred piece. I mean, this thing is freaking huge.
wow, that's not just on your featured page. That's your first one, isn't it?
Well, I try to arrange them so that there's some black, white, color
Contrast, yeah.
But I mean, this piece, here's my hand for context here. Full watercolor, like watercolor and acrylic and color pencil, all put together.
That's beautiful.
I had to build this enclosure for it because there's no way to store it.
I was gonna ask what you've got those stored in.
So I'll bind two hardcovers together, two pieces of board together, and then put mounting strips in there and put them in. But then I also got, so from Alex Ross's Marvels, Steve Rude did a story with Kurt Busiek. And what I love about this is he's drawn, again, Hulk-centric, and all the lettering is in there.
Wow.
So it's a story about the Golden Age Avengers with Rick Jones being central, with all the lettering in there. And then the Hulk shows up through this device that Iron Man makes and creates a Hulk version of the Avengers. I mean, it's crazy. And all the text is in there, which is really amazing. And I hear some of the guys talking about liking, the text balloons and stuff. And I totally see it. Like,
oh wow. So
having a story that, yeah, it's a 14-page story. It's the prime story in the book.
And you have the whole story?
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's the other thing that I've tried to do is pick up a whole story when I can. Um,
And how many full issues are you currently sitting on?
I think I have five.
Okay, nice.
And I put like what one is a really interesting one, the Shazam #9. And that's a weird one because I had no connection to the story or anything, but I loved the cover that Mark Buckingham did. That's on my calf. And then it's the issue is by three different artists. So I was lucky enough to like track down the artists and pick up all the pages from them. And that's like Scott Collins, uh, Marco, and then Dale Eaglesham. And it's really interesting to have a piece that's a book that's done by three artists, kind of. And also you get the double page splashes, which are nice. Um, Here's the Shazam family by Dale that I don't think I've posted.
Oh, that's awesome. Always really liked him.
And he was an artist that I wasn't personally very aware of, but I love finding new artists and meeting them and talking to them. And I really miss the cons, obviously, getting to meet the creators and um, like the last New York Comic Con that I went to, Brian Stelfreeze was there
Oh
doing
yeah.
just amazing work. And that, like then that's on my, that kind of goes on the mental checklist. You're like, oh, I got to get something from Stelfreeze. And, Dennis Cohen, love his stuff. I'm a big Deathlock fan from that series. I managed to snag a cover. Um, and there's so many places the hobby could go, like Peanuts, getting the prices are crazy. So I'm not going to probably get too deep into that, but
What year was that? Your last New York?
that was the 2019 one.
Oh, nice.
I went to my primary focus was to try to get War Children pages from Sienkiewicz, but that sold complete. Um, but then by that time, I was setting up to meet people at the con, and I was picking up art that I'd bought that dealers were bringing in for me, and it was great. I mean, that was like a trip to Disneyland.
Oh yeah. For us, it doesn't get much better than that. It's an embarrassment of riches. That place. Um, yeah, I think I've gone just once. What year was that? I think that was 2018. And yeah, it was a blast. It was a blast. And
But
you get so
even Calgary sounds fantastic because I like a con where artists are coming and people aren't. Like
yeah.
I would travel to Calgary just to like have a more intimate environment and have a chance to speak to some of these guys.
Yeah, it's funny because it's not really a big collector show, but some years they have a lot of prominent artists, and I think now with me based out of here, I'm really pushing to get uh, a big group of our artists to come to, see if we can't get a little more international content there.
And
Maybe.
I haven't been talking about Inky Knuckle artists, but I've had some phenomenal luck with the Troy Nixie commission that came in. Just
Yeah.
I mean that is like seeing a Wrightson almost. Like I don't want to like blow it out of proportion, but just the effort and the line work and the marks. I'm looking at it right now. Just the way the light is bouncing off the cables and the way the skulls are just, oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you saying that. I know Troy. He was very proud of that piece as well, and that was complete. It was artist choice with cyberpunk
Right.
as the only caveat. Let's pull that up here. And
And
so
so
did
I think I had after COVID, so like hit in March. I think I did a count around like July, and I probably had about 20 commissions outstanding, and a bunch of those have started to come in. Um, but I probably still have about 20 or 30 commissions or purchase pieces out in the wild.
Yeah, and don't even have the tally. With us, there's still a few rolling in.
But that's good, right? That's now I'm like kind of reaping everything that I've sown. So I get my fix.
And when it rains, it pours. You'll go 2 months without seeing a piece, and all of a sudden, 1 week, a piece 8 will show up on your door. Seems to be kind of
And
the direction.
I was definitely one of the guys. I remember even saying this to artists because it was true at the time. Every piece I buy gets framed and put up on the wall.
Yeah.
Like that was me the first 18 months of collecting. And then I just ran out of wall space. And
Well, and then
um,
it becomes, should I frame these 6 pieces or just buy another piece?
oh yeah, I mean, luckily, the one thing that really helped me was I had a framers workshop next to me. So you do the framing yourself, and
Oh, cool.
yeah. So that was a huge kind of cost-effective way of doing it, and I learned a lot about putting things together and swapping things out of frames, and so
Yeah.
that was pretty
That,
helpful.
yeah, especially in this hobby. Yeah. Rod says, "Come to Heroes." Mikael, you
I,
haven't been to Heroes, have you?
I haven't been. I've only been to Boston and New York. I've heard great things about Heroes, Emerald City, and Dragon are three that I'd love to get to.
Yeah, that Emerald City was always the one that I always went to. I'm not that far. We're only an hour flight,
Mhm.
and Seattle, just the ease of getting around the con and stay close, and it just, I don't know, the vibes there are always great. Always seem really artist driven, and Dan says Dragon Con represent. But
Yeah,
yeah,
Dan's a big fan.
Heroes is Heroes and Dragon Con. Well, and hopefully I see Chicago and Emerald City were both announced for next year in December, which is interesting. But hopefully it works out and actually goes on. But
Yeah,
who
it's hard
knows?
to. I mean, nobody knows anything at the moment, and
Yeah, it's tough to even speculate. Because it's funny with Seattle too, because that's when COVID really became a thing. Because they had their outbreak, I think, in a care home, and we were all talking. I was headed out there. I was talking to people, artists, who's going, "Oh, they're not going to cancel it. Oh, they're gonna. Don't worry about it." And then all of a sudden, it got canceled, and then the shitstorm followed. Um, but yeah, now we're already talking about it. But
yeah, and it's hard, when the kids aren't in school and stuff too. It's hard to
yeah,
kind of get away.
yeah, yeah. And who knows, what travel even looks like after that. Hopefully, return to normalcy would be very nice. Do you have anything else you want to dive into?
I I I don't know if people want to see anything. I think I just like to. The other thing I really like about the hobby is just the people that you meet.
Yeah,
I think if you get into the hobby and you go to a few cons and you start talking to people, um, you can meet a lot of people who just want to help you kind of get the pieces you want and who want to talk about art and talk about what's happening in comics and stuff. And I think that's great. I mean, I'm like a junkie. When I when I get into something, I want it all the time. I wake up and I scroll Instagram and I check Twitter, and I'm like, damn it, there's not enough comic news. I check the CGC boards. I'm like, come on, guys, give me something to talk about. Um, but I do agree with what you were saying earlier that in terms of the big two and products that they're pushing that don't seem to really fit any goal other than to create content and sell it. I mean, that's it's becoming very visible and it's becoming very disheartening. And I don't fault the artists and the writers who are doing it. I mean, that's, everyone's looking for a job, and
Yeah.
but there was a lot of news out today about DC and how their model is going to change, or not news, but um, speculation, I guess, that they're going to forego the LCSs and just direct market or go digital.
Yeah.
Um, all that aside, I mean, DC Black Label is still doing some interesting stuff. Um, the those some of those 12-part maxi series like Vision, Strange Adventures is shaping up really nicely.
Yeah.
Mr. Miracle I really enjoyed.
Yeah. Mr. Miracle is
Um,
huge.
so I'm all for stories that I can read and enjoy, but I think there's so much out there. There's so many artists doing amazing work, and the prices are getting crazy. I mean, the prices. You were talking about, getting back to Jeff Shaw. I heard today that the ask for uh, the first issue of Crossover, is that the new one, the new
Crossover, yeah,
series?
with Donnie, yeah.
Yeah, that's like 40K for the issue. I mean, that's a lot of money, and it
Yeah.
just feels a little bit speculative,
Yeah. Yeah.
to spend more than half the median household income, on a story that just came out that hasn't stood the test of time.
Yeah.
That for me is really hard. I'm much more comfortable in my wheelhouse, things that I like, or an artist that I just really dig.
Yeah.
Adam Hughes, who we're competing with right now. I mean, what a phenomenal artist! To the way he puts together composition, the way he executes, it's just amazing. And I love his work applied correctly. So we were talking about the draftsmanship of the figures. Um, he did this story for Fantastic Four 650, which was Ben's bachelor party, and it was fantastic. It was so human. It was so real. It was taking these Marvel characters and putting them in a bar and putting them in a party, and I love stuff like that. Something that makes me smile, something that's different.
Yeah.
That's what I really gravitate towards.
Yeah, and I think there is something to be said for kind of these slice of life superhero moments. It's something I've really enjoyed, not just in a book, but with some commissions too. Um, just a quick, Dylan was just asking me about this piece. I'll probably get lots of glare on it. This is Matteo Scalera, Red Hood and the Outlaws cover.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and the image was actually changed. They took the Ross image off for publication and put something else in there.
But that's not a stat, right? That's he recreated it.
Yeah, that's all. It's all inks and washes. There's no paste ups or anything. Yeah, this
I
is.
feel like his commissions that he's been putting out during COVID have been incredible. Like, they catch my eye every single time.
Yeah, I truly believe, and I've been a big fan of his for a while. This piece is my favorite piece he's ever done, and so I had to pay a bit of a premium. But that's one of the reasons I'm really happy with it, because I think Matteo is kind of a modern master. I think people are starting to take notice more and more and more, especially now that he's with the SGM White Knight universe. But I think at this point he's still underrated in a huge way. I love that dude, and I will never stop.
This is the again, like, getting back to like Daniel Warren Johnson.
That
I
is
mean,
incredible.
and we did this as a trade. So I had a Mike Mignola Hellboy pen and pencil sketch that I traded, and Daniel produced this masterpiece. I mean,
Oh wow! One you
and,
usually don't. don't see color from Daniel on a lot of stuff, so that's extra
And
rare.
that's the story that makes it so special to me. You know, like this is something that will never get traded. There's a history behind it. Um,
Oh yeah, that is beautiful.
and again, like he's small. He works 9 by 12. Like this is even smaller than 9 by 12 probably, or 9 by. And then I'll just show the other piece that, oh man, I mean, this piece.
Well, I think that piece, above all else, really accentuates, what Daniel does and does so
Sorry about the
well.
glare. Yeah, he
Um,
he he really thinks about what is
yeah, that
different,
was,
like what is art in this,
yeah.
and it just it's shocking.
Was that one 9 by 12 too, Mikail?
Yeah, 9 by 12, petite.
Oops. Wow. And he's nailed it when it looks so much larger.
I was shocked. I was speaking to Felix, and I was interested in getting a double-sized piece, and he's like, "Oh, Daniel, doesn't really do that. He works quite small." And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I love the hobby. I think there's so much to be had. There's so many artists to work with at all different price levels, um, but it can be daunting for sure.
Well, like you said, it's scrolling Instagram, updating your calf, checking the CGC boards, chatting with guys. It's daunting, but I think that's part of the beauty of it. It feels
And
like you're never going to be bored.
yeah, and then, I mean that's not even like counting like deviant art. Then you get into artists from all over the world. I've bought stuff from the Philippines, from the artists there that are doing fantastic work where there's a history of it. Um, this is another one of my favorites, the Del
Gelato.
Auto.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow. That's a cover, right?
Yeah, it was a variant cover.
Yeah, he's when I first got into collecting, he was such a huge deal. He still is. I mean, he's one of the greatest modern painters for comics, for sure. Oh man, that is so nice. Awesome.
But yeah, I mean, it's been really fruitful, very fulfilling. It's like getting your childhood back, which is an unbeatable feeling.
Yeah,
And if you do it right, the hobby starts to become self-sustaining, and I
yeah,
think that's pretty important too.
yeah. That's exactly right. Like you said, being smart about it, talking to people, growing your network. It's all such a big part of it. And I encourage people too, because I was in a very small town, and in our province in Saskatchewan, there's not a ton of art collectors. I kind of touched on that with Byron, but you spend so much time um, collecting virtually. And I know that's kind of what we're all doing now because we're all under lockdown, but phoning people up, socializing at conventions with collectors and artists, build the network out, and don't be afraid to talk to people, because I venture to say 99% of collectors and artists are more than happy to talk about comics and art, and not just talk about it passionately, rant and rave about it. Because you'll find too, even if you're at a show and say you're talking to a prominent person, say David Finch comes to mind. And I remember talking to David Finch, and Lobo came up, and his eyes just like lit up, and we had this passionate conversation about Lobo, and he was kind of driving it. And it's David Finch. He's a huge name in comics, and still, giddy and excited about something. And it's the norm that we're all in it, in collecting, creating various ways, because we are incredibly passionate. And I don't know too many other hobbies or interests where people are as passionate about things as they are in this one. So
Yeah, and I definitely hate to hear, the stories of like, the super collectors who, they do have to be careful because they have something that people want. And um, but like you said, like the person I was talking about who showed me the Wrightson plate, black hole collector, but
yeah,
I mean, brought over like probably what was like a minor part of the collection, and there was like, an ASM cover from McFarlane, and there was like, and, people who started 10, 15, 20 years ago, there's obviously an advantage, especially if you stayed with it. But everyone can carve out their own chunk of the hobby to shine in if that's what they want. I'm big on The Authority. I think that was a series that I read that just really stuck with me. And I have a recreation of the #1 cover. I have the #2 cover. Um, there's nice pieces out there, and it's not crazy money yet. So I love that little niche of my collection.
yeah, and it's kind of about what makes you happy. And I do like 5 complete stories is something that's very interesting too, because years ago when I started collecting, I had certain guys, only a handful of guys, were buying full issues, and it was rare because it was rare for some of the older stuff to be complete. But I have 1 full issue at the moment, and there's something really fulfilling about it. Essentially reading the issue.
Did you put it together, or did you buy it complete?
I bought it complete. Yeah. I
And
struck.
that's the other kind of cool thing is somebody reached out to me about a page that I have because they're putting the issue together, and I was happy. It was a minor page for me, and I was happy to say I didn't give it to them, but I said, you get the rest of the pages. It's yours. Like, I'm not gonna gouge you for it. I don't want to like. I'm happy for you to have it.
Yeah.
And I think that's like I don't think that I'll never be able to put together the Jungle Adventure, but then you start to look at sequences and stuff, and then what happens is you don't do the sequence, and then in 5 years somebody comes and asks me about it, and I'm like, yeah, sure, I'm ready to let go of this page because it never really went anywhere. But that's the other thing is true. You have to ask people. My first Authority page, I cold wrote to someone on CAF, and I hope I was very polite, and they responded and sold me a page, and that was like my first one.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the thing too. Don't be afraid to ask. I know some people can get a little pretentious, and you understand. If you're getting 90 million emails a day about a piece, and you do get some unreasonable offers. People will come to you for a piece you're not selling, and kind of push the negotiation into your hands. And it's just poor etiquette. Stuff's not on the market. You're going to have to come up with an offer, do this stuff. You understand why people get a little ornery with that, but at the same time too, what's the worst that's going to happen? Someone's going to say no. Don't be afraid to ask.
I don't sell a lot, but I have sold some pieces, and the people that got them from me came in with a strong offer, and I looked at I look at the relative value of something to me having it versus like, oh wow, this is a great offer that'll fund a couple commissions or a couple of pieces that I've had my eye on. And yeah, I think it's hard to be a black hole collector and just have your collection be static.
Yeah.
And not everyone can just throw in money at pieces to get them. So
yeah, and those years of things kind of flying under the radar don't really happen anymore. The big high demand.
look at the comic link that's coming up. The quality of stuff in this one auction is insane. Every year at Heritage, there's another landmark piece that shows up.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
it's wild. Cool. Well, sit on the rest for now, because when we do Mikail Part 2, we still need more art to share.
all right. I think we can manage that.
So I'm just going to take a few minutes. So tomorrow, we've got Planet Paradise pages. That lighting is awful. From Jesse Lonergan, our newest announcement and artist. Tomorrow we're dropping the pages. It is going to be at 11 my time, which is 1 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're looking to get a page, hit us up. Jesse does crazy work. All these pages are double page spreads with the exception of like one or two on 18 by 12, so they're oversized. Jesse does some insanely cool detailed work. Might have seen this. I posted this one the other day too.
Oh yeah.
Hedra was a hit. This one's a little bit different stylistically, storytelling wise, but it's a really great story. Yeah. That's he went straight Jeff Darrow on.
I love that though. Why not? This is comics is the medium to try all of this stuff.
What I recall being very skeptical, and I don't even know why I didn't pick up Shaolin Cowboy when Jeff Darrow first did it. And looking back, I'm like, this is right up my alley. Why? And I eventually grabbed it, but
what did you see the comic tropes the recent video on Daniel Warren Johnson?
No, I have not watched that one yet.
So he was explaining, he kind of delved into like, I think literally the title Space Mullet was a barrier for me to get into Space Mullet. And he did a really good job of kind of explaining it a little bit. So I was like, all right, I can kind of now try this Space Mullet, which was just a really inspired choice of title. But it brings something with it, and you're like, I don't know if I'm a Space Mullet kind of guy.
Well, in Space Mullet, yeah, that's old school DWJ. Yeah, Space Mullet. Well, I'll have to watch that. It's been kind of cool watching Daniel's rise, and it's those stories, those titles. I feel like that's very much who he is.
That's what they said, is that it's tongue in cheek and that he's kind of setting you up for something like, don't take this too seriously. It's a fun story. You don't have to, not have a mullet to enjoy it.
Yeah, that is a great one. And one more, I won't spoil all these. This a little simpler page, but very cool.
Look at that black. It's laid in there. Love it.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Jesse's work, and I think it's only going to get crazier and better. And so we do have Planet Paradise dropping tomorrow. But I did speak to Jesse today, and we do have some Hedra coming your guys' way soon too. I know a lot of people have asked me about that. And one more teaser, I may have, and I'll harass Anand before we drop these, but blue and green, I've been talking about it a lot lately. Here's a little teaser at some of it, Anand Radhakrishnan's pages. I think Anand, oh, there we go. Graffiti's wall.
Yes. Anand Radhakrishnan.
Yeah,
what a guy. Look, I love this. I love this sequence. I mean, the way that he chose to portray the cloth and the smoke. I mean, just amazing.
And I think Anand, do you want to hold that up again, Mikail? his next project, I think, is going to be a bit of an amalgamation of a few different styles, but he's leaning more towards graffiti's wall for the next one. He kind of hinted at. So I think we'll kind of see his style evolve. You know, not comics guy until recently. You know, he's been an artist in other facets, but I think he's still trying to find what it is he wants to go forward with sequential storytelling wise, and some more from Anand. I'll show a few more of these. Like I said, I might not show very much because I'm hoping to have him on here, and we can show more. I actually want to show you guys a page. I'm pulling pages from this.
My LCS did not have blue and green, unfortunately.
Oh shit! Do you? I have a digital copy. If you'd want to peek at it that way.
Yes, I might take you up on that because Amazon is telling me January now.
Oh wow!
Which is good for them. I'm glad it's selling.
Yeah, I think it's kind of been. Yeah, I think people are really digging it. I think it's brilliant. I think there's something incredibly cohesive about. I'm going to save the pages. We'll see. We'll look at those later. But I was talking.
And that's the other thing I'll say is I'll unabashedly say that as a brown person, I really like looking at female artists. I like looking at minority artists, you know, just to see what they're bringing to the table, something different. I mean, that's amazing.
That's the cover.
I mean, just look at the brush strokes. That's like, yeah, I like to see what the rest of the world is doing, you know, and I think it's worth kind of seeking that out. I have one of the full issues I have is Bilquis Everly from The Dreaming. So, you know, she's a Brazilian artist and she's done the whole thing. And I didn't get the cover though. So I've commissioned two other women to do alternate covers for me, just to kind of keep the whole thing very female centric. But the story is also very female centric. So
that's good. That's a good idea. And I like what you're saying there too, because I just, and I don't want to speak for Anand, but he's incredibly shy about some of his work. I know there's a few commissions he's doing, and even his approach to commissions, and you know this because yours is one of them. But he didn't know necessarily the approach to take because it's not something that's typical in India for them to take on commission work, and he was calling it fan art, and you know, whereas it's very prominent for us here in North America. But you know, I keep telling Anand, I'm like, just do what you do, man. Like, you're amazing. Just don't worry if your interpretation of Galactus isn't what you think the collector thinks it should be. You know, just do you. The results are stunning, and we'll get him on here to chat one of these times. We have such a wonky time difference.
Yeah, it's difficult with the time difference, but yeah, I'd love to get him and Ram on as well. You know, like that would be fantastic.
Well, and that was the other thing I was going to mention about them. I started reading Blue and Green, and Graffiti's Walls, same thing, but everything felt very cohesive, very singular, even though there's multiple collaborators on it. And I was speaking to Evan Cagle about, because him and Ram are also working together on a major book right now, and Evan had kind of said the same thing about Ram, how he somehow, his collaborations create a very singular expression and singular story. It's even for Evan to say that, and their book's not out yet, but he said everything's just so cohesive And I think that's why Rom, is such a phenomenal creator in his own right. I think he
Yeah,
collaborates.
even he can draw. Damn it! Like,
Oh, I get so mad because he's collaborating with amazing artists right now, and multiple guys who are on our roster and multiple other guys who are phenomenal. And he's on these books and these great books, and he can fucking draw. you know, I saw that when he was doing a lot more drawing, a lot more posting, and it's quite nice. And yeah, it's one of those things. We talked about multi-talented people earlier, and yeah, it's just carrying all kinds of hatred and spite towards them. I'm kidding, of course.
but yeah, I think these are the artists. These are the writers that I look at. I'm looking for new stories, looking for something different, and it's great that at least even within the big two, there are people being given a platform to try something different.
Yeah, which is great. Awesome, Mikail. Well, let's wrap it up there. I know you can kind of tell when the audience has fallen asleep, although it wouldn't be at anything you're saying. It's my monotonous voice.
I know we're competing with Adam Hughes on Drink and Draw, so
yeah, come on, you guys. But yeah, next time, Mikail, we'll probably I'll talk to you after, and I haven't been bugging too many of the artists for the shows right now because guys are kind of busy and getting commissions done, and it seems like a few guys are under some pretty crazy deadlines right now. And I actually have a ton of stuff I haven't even opened yet. I just picked this up today, which is Matt Allison commissions. So all you maniacs waiting on these, I have it.
He posted a Cyborg Superman work in progress today that looked amazing. The piece that he did for me, I mean, stunning. Can't wait to get that. I mean, that one and the Troy Nixie for sure, are going up on the wall because you just have to see them all the time to just appreciate the work that went into them.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate it. And I don't know if Troy was logged on tonight. Sometimes he tunes in, but yeah, I couldn't agree more. Both those guys are doing amazing things, and it's only going to continue. Those two are, and they're not the only two, but I talked to Troy quite a bit because he lives in Calgary as well. Yeah, just some of the ideas he has for directions he wants to take things, and yeah, I know he's having a lot of fun with your guys' requests too. But next time, Mikail, we'll get an artist on here, and then we'll kind of have a little bit more of a round table. Still show off some of your collection, because I curse you guys when I actually dig into calf. I don't do it as much as I used to, but just there's, like I said earlier on, there's things in your collection that I either forgot were yours or didn't know were yours. So yeah,
it's honestly it's a labor of love. I think of myself as a caretaker, at best. And for the commissions, just to quickly touch on that, like I said, I'm not an artist. I know what I like, but I getting into artist choice and leaning into that, or really working with the artist, like to give them something that they're going to like, that's going to excite them. I mean, if I say something, I always give an artist a choice because I don't want them to be pigeonholed into something or have to come up with something. Whereas if you get a choice of 3 characters or 3 scenes, because like the Jim Mahfood stuff that he was doing with the the music bands, like Beastie Boys and stuff like that, that's something that I have a Bowie commission coming in that's just insane. There's it's more than just funny, men in tights.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Very much so. And while Jim's so musically driven, yeah, the Beastie Boys one, a certain viewer commissioned those Beastie Boys pieces, and I don't know if he's still on, but yeah, there's a couple big packages coming some guys' way here very soon. But thanks
very much for having me on. Always a pleasure
and
to speak.
you'll you'll get on a few more shows and you'll be hosting before long. So be prepared.
It's I'm a good host because I can be paid in original art.
Yeah, it's easy then. It's a currency we understand. And I guess before we wrap up, two things. What's an artist you're really hoping to get something from next year that maybe you don't have something from yet? And what are you reading today? You kind of touched on it, but any reading recommendations for the folks?
Artist Scalera definitely comes to mind. Like I said, I've been seeing the commissions. I see the artistry, and it really speaks to me. And in terms of reading, again, I'm reading Immortal Hulk and Zdarsky's Daredevil in trade, and they're both fantastic. I'm really enjoying them. It's like drawing out the blade to wait for the trade, but it's so worth it to be able to get that chunk of great storytelling. Department of Truth, the artwork is fantastic, and it kind of forces you to think about things a little bit differently. And then I mentioned a lot of Tom King stuff, and the Rorschach is starting off strong. So while I'm mostly a Watchmen purist, I'm willing to give that a shot. There's stuff that I'm excited to pick up from the store, so that's still good.
Cool. And well, yeah, because Jorge Fornes, which I probably can't see it right now, but I've got.
I will also put him on the list of an artist that I'm really keen to get a piece from. And the Star Wars stuff has been pretty decent because they're kind of delving into making canon. So the stuff that Soul's writing is really good, and the art's been really good on Darth Vader and Star Wars. So
I haven't dove too much into that recently. I'm so far behind on books, but
I was a year ago. I had a stack of 100 books, and COVID actually helped a little bit with that. I got caught up on so much of my reading, so much of my organizing and bagging and labeling and stuff. So that was a relief.
Well, silver lining, got a chance to play some catch up. So
yeah, but yeah, those are the some of the. I mean, there's tons of artists. I'm sure I'm missing many, but Babs Tarr, I'd love to get a piece from her. There's just so many people. So many people working digitally too. Pepe Larraz. I mean, he was doing commissions that really caught my eye before he even got onto Powers of X, and he's got a great style.
Yeah, our pal David, he's not on here tonight, but he was such a big Pepe fan, kind of before everyone else was, well before House of X, and he kept telling us it's going to be huge. Get a commission from him.
Yeah, if you look at like the 2018 commissions, they're really good.
Yeah, I think he's definitely one of those guys who.
And Mitch Gerrard's, I think he has a great style as well. Very digital, mostly digital, but managed to pick up a cover from Strange Adventures, thanks to Ryan Sherwood.
Yeah, I had that in my hand at one point.
It was a nice piece.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Mitch is. I really like him and his work, and him Tom King are doing phenomenal things together. So,
what about you? What are you reading?
Today I picked. Well, it was. I picked up a Rich Tomaso Spy Seal book today. I picked up the first two issues of Ron Garney's Juggernaut, which I've really been itching for, and for some reason I missed those the week they came out. I have another Jacques Tardy book, the Sniper one, sitting in my nightstand right now. That I like that, and I mentioned it before, but Troy really got me into Frederick Peters. Some of the Alma and Lupus and some other ones. Really like those. Yeah, that's kind of it. I don't have too many specific ones because I'm so very far behind.
And yet,
Yeah,
every time you go to the LCS, there's like pretty things they're asking to be
yeah,
bought.
yeah. That's the thing. I haven't even there is some of the DC Black Label stuff that I haven't even looked at yet because I know
Yeah,
they're
I
just.
heard really good things about Harleen. I've got it, but I haven't had a chance to read it yet.
Oh, nice. Is that which Harley book is that?
Harleen, it was like the large format Black Label. I think it was like
Who's
a
the
three
artist on
card.
that one?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I know I have the books.
Okay. Yeah, because I was struggling with that too, with all the Harley books and the Black Label, because I
Yeah, because
really
a bunch
want.
came out at once, right? Criminal Insanity came out with Harleen, came out with I think another one. There were like three big ones out at the same time.
Yeah, the Amanda Connor one I really wanted to get, but I was so overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I gotta get
The
back
uh,
into.
the 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 cartoon is fantastic so far. I'm only a couple episodes in, but it starts off so powerful, and the second episode was pretty fun too.
Oh, that first episode, I could not believe what I was watching.
Yeah, I couldn't believe what I was hearing.
Yeah, the Joker just cold-blooded murder, F-bomb,
Yeah,
C-bomb.
it was a pleasant surprise.
One thing I will say, and I don't know if you guys have watched this yet or not, but Jendi, and I'm probably saying it wrong, Tartakovsky, Samurai Jack guy, the main guy animator behind Samurai Jack. His animated series Primal more recently released the second half of the first season. And if you guys have access to that, and let me just make sure I'm not completely butchering it. I read it all the time. Jendi, I'll write it here. And a lot of you guys might have already seen it, but it is.
I haven't, so I'll definitely keep an eye out for it.
It's so, I love it so much. It's just brutal. It's just a brutal Stone Age, like it. I think visually, I think you guys could all really appreciate it. It's on Cartoon Network or like Adult Swim. It's honestly one of my favorite animated things I've seen in a decade, and it's just brutal. It's just a caveman and his dinosaur trying to survive, and it is wild. So if you guys get a chance, I highly recommend that. Just it sparked my mind when I started talking about the Harley series, because that's all I've been watching on there is either Harley or Primal. But
That's the other fun thing is that that's a whole nother episode. But when you get into original art, then there's so many ways that you can take it. Like for my wife's birthday, I found the illustrator who did the cover for one of the books that she really likes, and I had him recreate it for her.
oh
Like
wow,
you start to think about these things about art and the art on things around us as something tangible. So similarly with Into the Spider-Verse, I mean, when I saw that, I immediately reached out to all the storyboarders to try and buy storyboards, but Sony owns all of them, so they couldn't sell them. But like I was like, that's something that I could absorb into my collection happily because it was something I
yeah.
loved. I mean, so there's so much interesting stuff beyond comics that you can kind of come to through the hobby.
Yeah, and to have the foresight to think to do those things you mentioned, because comics, it's easy to think, okay, someone has to draw these pages. So if they did it traditionally, we can get our hands on them. But for, like you said, the one you commissioned for your wife, or the storyboards for Spider-Verse, you kind of, like you said, you have to start thinking about how art is feeding these things and how these tangible things exist. So that's a really good point. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, storyboarding, when you get in, I mean, I'm not that I'm into it, but they storyboard everything, you know.
Yeah.
And then you watched The Boys, and they had storyboards in there. I was like, who has that original art? That was literally my first thought when they showed it in the pitch room. I was like, who has those boards? Like,
What? And were those? I remember seeing that. Do you know if those were? Was it Derek Robertson? Do you know?
I don't know.
I was kind of curious on that too, because I remember seeing that. You know where junkies went. Something like that shows up on the screen, and it just pulls you out. You're just like, oh my god, there's original art. Who did it? You know, how do I get it?
Yep.
Because I had a very similar reaction to that scene. So, cool, Mikail. Well,
And great series, right?
it really was, and well, we can talk about this a little bit too. The comic is not for everybody, and they've dialed back some things. And I felt like the first season, what bugged me a bit was the characterization of Billy Butcher moved in kind of a different direction than from the comics. And so I loved it, but it felt like, Butcher is this sociopath that you love and hate all at the same time. He's as awful as he is awesome. And I think that's very much by design by Garth Ennis in the comics. And they almost made him a little too sympathetic in season 1, is what I thought. But seeing how his character arc's evolving in season 2, I thought they really brought it back, and he's getting closer to that Ennis version that I loved so much. Loved and hated.
No, absolutely. When he hauls off and punches Huey, like, I think that's very much that moment that you hate him and you're pulling for him at the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you too that the book got very wordy. It got very political, and the series is kind of keeping it at a more even pace, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I thought season 2 was brilliant. I loved it, and
it was great.
Yeah, no, it sucks when at least they release them weekly after the first few, and they binge them, so we're not sitting there waiting. You don't binge it in a weekend and then you got to wait a year. But we'll be waiting a while for season 3, so when it comes, it'll be worth it.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Well, Cam, thanks very much for having me on. This was really, like I said, I'm a junkie. I love to talk about this stuff, and it's fun to talk to someone about it.
Well, no, and thank you for coming on. I mentioned it, and then I mentioned it to you today, and you kept it open in the schedule. So yeah, this is always a blast to do. I'm trying to get back to doing these a little more consistently, and I think we're almost there. Troy's kind of taken, not a hiatus, but he's really working through some of his projects and the commissions right now, and the head sketch monster commissions too. So
those have been great too. Wow. I said this on Instagram, but I even though I just got a monster piece from him, I was like, oh, I should have jumped on that list as well, because they've been great. And the stuff that Tyler Benz has been doing, like, alongside those, again, just great stuff. And I was listening to his podcast, and again, he's one of those bastards who can like write music and draw, and was working in a hospital, and I'm like, I'm just a useless liberal arts major.
Oh no. But yeah, I should have mentioned Tyler earlier, because he is very much in that otherworldly, multi-talented category. Because that dude,
the piece he did for me, I mean, I was so pleased with that. Just over the moon to see that, because I didn't know which one was mine. I opened up the thing and I was like, wow, this is the one that I loved. And
yeah, awesome. Yeah, he's doing phenomenal work, and I think his stuff too. It does kind of require a little bit of in-person viewing as
Yeah.
well to really get an appreciation for how detailed and how tight his work is. And hopefully, I've been bugging him to come on here a bit, so one of these times we'll get him on.
Yeah, that would be fun. Based on the podcast, I think that would be a good fit.
Yeah, definitely. He's an interesting guy with lots of cool things going on. So, Psycho Ben's worked in a hospital. Well, thanks to everyone for tuning in. Thanks, Mikail. And
Thank you.
there's plenty more coming soon, and we'll chat with everyone here very soon. Have a good night, guys.
Don't be an asshole.
Don't be an asshole.